Hi, and welcome to the Scientist Age Sangha. I'm Nancy Anderson Dolan from Wise Heart Wellness, and tonight we're going to talk about autonomy. Autonomy is an amazing idea that lots of us don't really get a lot of teaching or direct information about, but we come to learn about it as we grow up. So the idea here is really about why don't we consider that more and talk to people about it more and that sort of thing. And I'm going to give you a general definition because there's lots of them out there. And this is sort of a combination of them all. And autonomy refers to the capacity and the ability to make an informed, uncoerced decision about your life. And it involves things like self-governance and independence and the freedom to act according to values, beliefs, and desires, things like that. And it is really that broad. And it's not just an idea or something that you can even see, but it's how we feel about something that we are doing. And so as we go along, we'll look into the nuances of it a little more. Most of us truly have not been sort of formally or intentionally taught about this, but there is a movement in child teaching, child care teaching, about making sure that by 3, you're encouraging your children to have some autonomy, to choose their own clothes, or help with the groceries, or all sorts of things like that. And a lot of that happened naturally for a long time. But in the societies we live in today that are sort of media loaded, and all the timing is hard, parents often are not having children do those things because it's more expedient to do them themselves than to have a young child move through something more slowly. So there's lots of things going on in our communities and homes that make it different, the way that autonomy starts to present itself and how we teach people about it and how we learn about it. There's 2 other things that I want to bring up, though, too, is there's this idea of a collectivist culture and an independent culture. And so collectivist cultures are thinking of their autonomy based on what they can do to bring up the well-being and life of the whole community. And individually based cultures are looking at how my particular well-being, how will I bring that up? So there's a little different idea depending what kind of culture you were brought up in as well, or the kind of culture you move into, because a lot of people now are much more concerned about the earth, and that has been sort of squeezed out to the side of only the older collectivist kinds of cultures that really were connected to the earth, thought about it in terms of how I behave. My autonomy is tied to the earth and how well she is. So there's this flow that happens with the idea of autonomy. We have this idea of I get to do whatever I want, which of course is an entire myth, because no matter what we choose to do, we will have consequences. So we're free to choose, but we're not free to experience the consequences of our autonomy. So, like I say, we'll have a good exploration, but it's useful to understand this because we sometimes feel like we don't have enough autonomy. And there's many things that can go a little awry in our thinking and change the level of autonomy we have, even how we think about it. So the idea that I have autonomy to do whatever I want gets really challenged when I start to work with groups of people. And so if I want to do whatever I want, whenever I want, I have to make some trades. And so I might want to go to a movie and somebody else might want to go for a walk in the park, and we can negotiate, or we can have absolute autonomy where, no, I am going to the movie and you go to the park. That's not necessarily relationship building. So autonomy has to be woven through our relationships and how we think about it. That idea, it has to be based first on us knowing what we want. And so if we don't know what our own desires are, it can be really challenging to stand up for them and move towards them. And we may not have autonomy in that because we haven't got clear about the things that we want and need and the boundaries we set and what is okay with us and what is not okay with us, because then we're not communicating that well. And so it's hard to work it out with somebody else. And so as we go along, if we don't think we, need autonomy, particularly in more Western cultures, non-collectivist cultures, we have a lot of things that change when we don't think we have autonomy. So if we're in a job that is, we're told what to do every minute of the day, and we can't afford to leave that job, and I might have kids at home that I have to support, and I have to do the job how they tell me to do the job. They don't want to hear my ideas about it. That's a really low autonomy job. And typically people in low autonomy jobs are very unhappy, unless lots of people from collectivist cultures are just thinking they're doing part of the world's work, and they're not thinking about it in the same kind of way. They think, how am I contributing to the whole society? And I am a member of it, and I can enjoy doing this job that other people might not be willing to because they want more feeling of autonomy. But if someone believes that they're choosing that job, the same job that disturbed somebody else, will be fine for them. I've chosen this job and I'm going to do it and it'll be great. And that's the autonomy mystery, because if I think about autonomy in a way where I choose as opposed to I have to, it changes how happy I am. It changes how well I work. It changes how creative I am. It changes how kind I am. Because when we don't acknowledge that sort of thing, and we're just struggling with that feeling of lack of autonomy, we may not be naming it that. We just feel like we're so controlled by everything. And that can happen through things like um, mental health issues, depression, chemical changes in our bodies, addictions, things like that. It can really come up in that way as well, not being able to think in a positive way about being involved in something. And so those things that come up lead people into that split, um, being against other people, and I'm not part of everything, and people are doing things that are not okay. I'm mad at them. And our culture right now is feeling a lot of that. Everything is blocking down into, them versus us, and whoever team you're on doesn't matter. It feels like we don't have as much autonomy. And so as we go along here, the workplace research is so clear about this. If people feel they have more autonomy, they're more cooperative and productive, and they stay longer in a position, those kinds of things. If they feel they have autonomy, if they are allowed to make some decisions about things, all sorts of things like that. And if you've ever spent much time with a 2-year-old, you know, if the 2-year-old feels like they make decisions, they seem to slide through much easier too. When we get to 2 and they're saying, no, 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 and we can't give them complete autonomy because they're a little too young. But if they can feel they're making decisions, they're much easier to get along with, just like we are. So the ideas here are, if we are actually able, as we age, to sit within ourselves and sense the way that our rights and others' rights weave together, and the functional, practical limits within relationships about what I want to be able to be in control of and what other people want to be able to be in control of, and how we can have some flow and cooperation there, then we can start going along really comfortably. We're healthier, far healthier when we are feeling that way. We're more open to being able to what we might call trade autonomy. And like, it might be as simple as, okay, you decide tonight whether we're going to the movie or a walk, and then next week I'll decide. And it might be like that with chores around a house, or it might be like that on a team at work, changing back and forth so people are getting to feel like they are having a choice. And if we've missed that early autonomy training, or had traumatic experiences that affected it, or we have this dysregulated body system, we're likely to struggle with autonomy, either like we give it away or we have it too much. And I was talking with someone earlier today about they weren't going to go to this place or that place or that place because they didn't like the way that those people wanted to run everything. And it's, that's your absolute choice. But that might be problematic in moving forward to the kind of things that you want, because this generally is how this particular section of society works. And that they were just absolutely, I get to choose how those things should be. And well, they just don't have that information yet. That's not how it is. So what we're trying to do here is know our desires. Notice how this autonomy thing works in our lives as they are today. And that may be we've moved into a place where we gave up autonomy we probably shouldn't have or didn't want to, but just sort of slid into it because it seemed to be the easier thing to do at the time. Or if we are taking too much autonomy away from other people and we're not able to cooperate in a good flow of things. So that thing I keep coming back to, you need to know what you want. Knowing what you want is central to being able to decide, what do I want to do with what I want? Because that part is like, okay, I want this, but why do I want it? If I know and I can explain to someone else, then we can start working for both of us to feel autonomy. But if I don't, if I just don't, I don't know why I want it, and I just want it, we start that pushing and shoving kind of feeling. With people feel like their autonomy is being taken away. It doesn't feel like they're in a discussion. So most of us have lived lots in reactivity. And reactivity is something that is just so detrimental to autonomy. The moment we feel like we're not in control or somebody is trying to push us around, we can have a big reaction to that, as opposed to going inside, what is it that I really want here? Is that being threatened even? Or am I just feeling like that? Or is this an idea that I'm so happy to go along with and I'm making a choice? So all sorts of things like that. This idea that everybody is equal is kind of a myth. And it really is that we need to notice that we're not equal at every moment, but we still have choices. As soon as we see that we still have choices, we can do some other things and we feel better about the world, about ourselves, about our destiny, that sort of thing. And we've talked a lot about what influences autonomy. And I broke it down in the email that I sent out this week, that it says some are influencers of autonomy that are internal and just in our minds, in our bodies, and some are external, like cultures, our partners, the weather, all sorts of things like that. So when we notice that sort of thing, we can take steps to move towards it. I was last week. I was not feeling well, and that was clearly this influencer inside me. I didn't get to make a choice to carry on the Sangha because I just didn't feel well enough. But as I paid attention to that, that made the choice for me, and I was okay with that. When I fight things that are actually going on, and I'm like, no, I'm going to do this anyway, I often don't have things turn out very well. And I see that happen with lots of people. So we need to know what's going on there. Maybe there's dysregulation, like my upset stomach and that sort of thing. Or maybe there's an old reaction that has nothing to do with the situation I'm in, but my body's gotten all dysregulated because of the old reaction. And I don't feel autonomy in this situation, even if I really do have some. So noticing those internal things are really useful. And sometimes it's repetitive learning. Some people have gone to schools that had a much more open concept and they were able to make decisions in different ways about how to do their work and that sort of thing. And some people have gone to schools where there was no autonomy. You just had to sit in your chair and do what you're told. And so those people are going to react to things differently. But we can all change. We can all look at our beliefs. We can all look at our experiences and work through them to find that path of autonomy that works for us. It can even be things like intense emotions. If I can notice that my intense emotions often take my autonomy away because maybe somebody doesn't want to talk to me if I'm emoting all over them, um, or maybe I can't even think about what I want in a situation or what would make me feel like I had autonomy, then I can't move towards it. So I might notice that, oh, when I have those intense emotions, that's how it goes. I think I'll choose a different path and then come back. I'll take care of the emotions and I'll come back and I'll navigate a little differently. And then I won't make decisions based on autonomy, mine or somebody else's, when I'm in that highly emotional state. So the awareness that we have about our internal things is so important. And we can navigate the world so differently when we know what's influencing us in that way. We don't give up our autonomy as easily, and we are much more comfortable sharing autonomy in situations with other people. And the external influencers work the same way, awareness of them, those kinds of things, and knowing what my unique responses are. But they're they're a little different in that we can often visually see them. You know, if you have a boss standing with you saying, "No, you can't go home right now," then you have a pretty good idea that's an external thing. And sometimes, though, that it could be as simple as the weather. I know lots of people that if the weather isn't exactly the way they want it to be, they will not do what they have planned and they will not make a different decision. They're just, I can't have control, so I'm not doing anything. And lots of us have little places in this that we have that way. There might be concrete external circumstances like poverty and social connections or just time, those kinds of impact as well. And there might be others that are things that if I take good care of myself, if I pay attention to things and pay attention to other people, the way that they're feeling about our relationship and the autonomy in it, whether it's work or even in a grocery store, we have a different experience. And so if I feel that the the person, the cashier taking my groceries, and I feel connected to them and we're on an equal level because if they stop doing their job, I can't leave the grocery store. And if I stop cooperating with them, they get in trouble. So together, we are working together. We both have our own autonomy still. We're not trying to, put pressure on either to make it be different and have a less equal autonomy. We're just being present. And those kinds of things work really, really well. And so I encourage people to think about it in that way. Taking the time you need to go, okay, like I feel like I'm being controlled. And what can I do about that? And just a note, it doesn't mean that somebody isn't trying to control us. That absolutely can be happening. But I still have autonomy if I sit within myself and go, okay, how do I want to respond to this person who's trying to take control of me? Because sometimes I don't care. I might go, okay, let's go walk the dog. And it doesn't matter to me. It truly has no issue. I feel autonomy to say yes or no, and no problem. But if I feel that I don't have the choice to say yes or no, I start feeling different about it. And so a small thing like that about walking the dog could become this power struggle. And I could, submit to walking the dog, but not feel good about it. And, be stewing about it as I go along. And lots of times that happens. And it could, like I say, be something as simple as walking the dog or something important enough, like whether people will have children or not, or whether they're going to move to another country. And I've heard so many stories about people, well, I felt like I had to. And that's why we'll wrap it up there with it's so, so important to have this idea about can I be present with my own needs and my own desires and the needs and desires of someone else at the same time. So I hope you've had some ideas that were planted in your mind. I really feel it's important that we understand these kinds of things right now, where there's a lot of external things that feel like they're controlling us. And it can put us into a very negative state. And when that catches like a communicable disease, it really spreads in people's minds. And if we can understand that we still have our own autonomy, we may not be able to do whatever we want, whenever we want, about everything in the world, but there's always this space of autonomy here. And my attention needs to go towards navigating. So I really hope that this was interesting, and I look forward to talking to people about it further after we stop the video. I'll just say there is some autonomy exploration questions in the email that I sent out about this week's topic. If you're not currently on the email list and would like to receive those, please feel free to send a request for those autonomy exploration questions to scientistsage@gmail.com. And if you're not sure about that, it's always listed on the actual site, scientistsage@gmail.com, on the YouTube channel. When these come out, that'll be in there. Okay, so I'm going to shut it down now. So the people that are with me, I will be with you in a moment. And the people on the video, I'll just say a quick good night and thank you so much for tuning in whenever you're watching this. Please take care. I am with you. You are with me. Blessed be. Good night.